You ever put so much of yourself into a piece of land that it feels alive because you're the one keeping its heart beating? That's what Cedar Hollow Lake is for me. 8 years back, I was staring down retirement and a choice. Play it safe with what I had, or gamble on a dream that most folks would have laughed at. What I bought wasn't a dream. It was a swamp. The kind of place where mosquitoes rise in clouds, cattails choke the waterline, and the mud is thick enough to steal your boots if you make the mistake of stepping too far. The realtor didn't even try to sell it with charm. Just said, "Nobody's wanted this parcel in 20 years. You sure? I was sure, because I didn't see what it was. I saw what it could be. The first winter, I brought in a dredge crew. Men with machines that looked like something out of a war movie, cutting into the frozen muck while I hauled load after load. I worked beside them until my shoulders burned and my fingers cramped from the cold. Every shovelful was a reminder. If you want peace, sometimes you have to fight for it. When spring thawed, the swamp was gone. In its place was water deep enough to hold a reflection. I named it Cedar Hollow Lake. The cedars stood watch around the edges like old sentinels, and hollow carried the kind of stillness I wanted people to feel when they stood at the shoreline. And I kept building. 3 cabins, strong beams, good roofs, nothing fancy but built with hands that cared. A timber pavilion, salvaged from the bones of a dairy barn that had gone down in a storm. 2 docks, solid enough to ride out a gale without complaint. A neat row of kayaks, bright as crayons against the green. Every board, every nail, every hour of sweat, those weren't expenses. They were investments in something bigger than money. You see, this lake was never meant to be just a business. I've had guests tell me I should double the prices, that I'm sitting on a gold mine. They don't get it. Cedar Hollow isn't about profit. It's about breathing room. It's about kids learning how to build a fire without asking a screen for instructions. About quiet families fishing at dawn, teachers showing their children what patience looks like when you're holding a line in the water. The best review I ever got was one sentence. It feels like a thought you forgot you'd had. That's what I wanted. Not noise. Not crowds. Just solitude, gently shared. And maybe that's why, if you'd asked me what my biggest headache would be out here, I never would have guessed it. I'd have said beavers chewing through my dock posts, or teenagers sneaking in with a 12-pack and leaving cans in the fire pit. Not neighbors. Not a homeowners association across the county road. But I hadn't met Meredith yet. It started on a morning that should have been perfect. I was sitting on the porch of Cabin 1 with a mug of coffee, watching the mist lift off the lake. The water was calm, the kind of calm you don't buy with money. You buy it with years of work and aching shoulders. It tasted like peace. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Guest from Cabin 3. Her voice came through in a whisper, like she'd stumbled onto a crime scene. "Mr. Whitman, I don't know how to tell you this, but there are buses down by the lake. Plural. And there's a banner. And I think a DJ." My mug froze halfway to my lips. "How many buses?" I asked, already standing. "5 at least," she said. 2 minutes. That's how long it takes to drive from my house down to the clearing if you're calm. I wasn't calm. I came around a bend and thought I'd taken a wrong turn straight into a carnival. 5 full-size charter buses sat angled across the service road like beached whales, their doors yawning open. People spilled out, coolers, folding tables, volleyball nets, kids running like they'd been dropped at summer camp. Music thumped so hard you could feel in your chest. And then I saw the banner. Big and proud, Brookstone Meadows Family Day. Right on cue, I spotted Meredith Cole, HOA president. Pink blazer, so bright it looked like a distress flare, megaphone in hand, standing on my picnic table like it was her podium. She smiled like she just cut the ribbon on a county fair. "Meredith!" I shouted, fighting the music. She turned, beaming like we were best friends. "Jake, you made it. Isn't this wonderful? The community together, building tradition." Tradition? I felt the vein in my temple twitch. "You didn't ask. You cut the chain on my service gate. You hauled in 5 buses. You're grilling on my propane. That's not tradition. That's trespassing with extra steps." She tilted her head like I told a sweet little joke. "Oh, Jake, we're not trespassing. We've reviewed doctrine. The lake may fall under public trust, navigable waterways, riparian rights. There's a whole body of law." "It was a swamp," I snapped. until I dredged it. Man-made. Inside my deed lines. Permitted and inspected. You want doctrine? I got blueprints. Her smile wavered, then came back sharper. Don't be selfish, Jake. Look at the joy you're creating. These families are your neighbors. We even signed waivers. She waved a stack of papers like confetti. Behind her, a man was elbow deep in my bait freezer, rummaging like it was a community pantry. A teenager paddled one of my rental kayaks with the tag ripped off, towing 3 little kids while they tossed chips at a duck. On the lawn, someone had set up a folding table that looked suspiciously like a cash bar. I don't know if you've ever watched a liability lawsuit being born, but that's what it felt like. I could practically hear it breathing. So I pulled out my phone. Meredith noticed, eyes narrowing. "Who are you calling?" she asked. "The sheriff," I said. Her smile flattened, but she raised her megaphone like a shield. "Attention, everyone. Please ignore the man in the green jacket. He's just having a bad day. Keep enjoying your lake." That word hit me square in the ribs. Your lake. That's when I knew this wasn't going to end with a polite conversation. Deputy Hank Ruiz pulled up faster than I thought possible. Out here, 12 minutes is basically teleportation. Hank's the kind of man built for quiet authority. Tall, slow-moving, sun-lined face, and a mustache that says he's not here for nonsense. He stepped out his cruiser, took one long look at the chaos. 5 buses still idling, music pounding, strangers crawling over my dock like ants at a picnic, and then looked at me. The sigh he let out carried a lifetime of, well, here we go again. I handed him a folder before he could even ask. Deed, plat maps, environmental permits, even soil reports from when I dredged the swamp into a lake. "You always carry this around?" he asked, flipping through like scripture. Ever since the compost bin complaint of 2019, I muttered. Before Hank could reply, a man in a pineapple print shirt waddled over, holding a paper plate stacked with ribs like a peace offering. "Officer, there's no need for trouble. This is a community celebration. Nature belongs to everyone." Hank didn't even blink. "Did the property owner invite you?" The man hesitated, eyes darting toward Meredith. "Well," Meredith said. "Uh-huh." Hank closed the folder with a snap. And speak of the devil. Here came Meredith, pink blazer gleaming, smile stretched thin. She still had that megaphone in her hand like it was a scepter. "Deputy Ruiz, surely this is just a misunderstanding," she began, her voice sugary enough to rot teeth. "The lake is subject to public trust. Navigable waterways, implied rights." Hank held up a palm. "Ma'am, no. Public trust applies to natural waterways open to the public. This is a man-made lake entirely inside his deeded property. There is no easement, no implied right, no community claim. You are trespassing." Her smile flickered like a dying bulb. "We were told." "By who?" Hank asked flatly. Her jaw worked like she was chewing invisible gum. She tried again. "You're telling me you'll arrest families? Parents? Children?" Hank sighed like a tired parent himself. "I'll give you 30 minutes to load these buses and clear out. After that, I start writing citations. If anyone argues, they can do it downtown." The shift was immediate. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The DJ killed the music. A man cursed under his breath while stuffing half-burned burgers back into a cooler. Parents gathered their kids. You could taste the resentment in the air, sharp as vinegar. Meredith tried to rally. "Don't let him scare you." But no one wanted to be the headline on an arrest report. One by one, they packed. Folding chairs scraped. Nets collapsed. Coolers leaked ice and soda into the grass. When the buses finally hissed their doors shut and pulled away, what they left behind looked like a hurricane had partied too hard. Trash in the bushes, streamers tangled in my cedars, ashes smoldering in a fire pit they hadn't even put out. Hank handed me a copy of his incident report. "You can build them?" he asked. I looked at the dented lawn, the broken trash bags, the muddy footprints on my dock. My jaw tightened. "More than the bill," I said. And I meant it. 2 weeks later, I got the letter. Certified mail, heavy envelope, law firm logo on the corner like it was proud of itself. The HOA was suing me. According to their claim, Cedar Hollow Lake fell under public trust doctrine. They argued that because their members had used even just that one disastrous day, they had created an implied right of access. Basically, they were trying to say that my private lake had magically become theirs. I sat there at my kitchen table with the letter in my hand, reading it 3 times, my coffee going cold. Then I called the only person I knew could cut through the noise, my lawyer, Dana Clean. Dana's a small-town attorney with round glasses, a denim shirt, and the kind of steady voice that makes county boards stop squirming. She read the HOA's complaint in silence, then finally said, "Jake, this isn't just nonsense. It's dangerous nonsense. But don't worry, we're not just going to defend. We're going to counterpunch." And so began my new life as an archivist. I pulled every record I had, the deed, the permits, drone footage of me dredging the swamp into a lake, blueprints, invoices, inspection reports, photos of the NO trespassing signs, time-stamped, sworn statements from my guests who'd called me the morning the buses showed up, even the incident report from Deputy Ruiz. But the crown jewel came from an unexpected place. A former HOA board member slipped me a thumb drive. On it, screenshots of Meredith bragging in emails. If we make enough noise, we can force shared usage. Once we set a precedent, it's ours. Intent, clear as day. Court shrinks everything. You walk into a boxy room with fluorescent lights buzzing like flies. The HOA had hired a young lawyer who looked barely old enough to rent a car. He stood there talking about community values, waving old photos of families at picnics like they were land deeds. Then Dana stood, calm, unshakable. She laid out every permit, every survey, every time-stamped photo. She showed the Judge Meredith's emails. And then she said, in her quiet, steady voice, "Intent is not an easement. Dreams of access do not make law." The judge, Ruth Kellogg, didn't smile once. She didn't need to. When she ruled, her words came down like fence posts driven into the earth. The plaintiff's claim is dismissed with prejudice. Cedar Hollow Lake is private property. Damages awarded to the defendant, $12,500. Gavel. Done. The local paper ran the headline. Lake owner wins against HOA. Online, someone made a meme of Meredith in her pink blazer, knee-deep in cartoon water, with a caption, "Access denied." My bookings doubled. Guests started calling it Bylaws Bay. I even hung a little wooden sign under my Cedar Hollow sign. Unofficially known as Bylaws Bay, access by invitation only. Meredith? She lost her board seat in the next election. She sent me a letter later talking about building bridges. I fed it straight into the wood stove. Because bridges are for rivers, not boundaries. But the best moment wasn't the ruling or the money or the memes. It was when Walter, one of the quieter HOA neighbors, showed up one evening with a 6-pack. He stood there, hat in hand, and said, "Jake, we were wrong." She told us what we wanted to hear. I cracked a cold one and handed it back. "You ever fish?" I asked. "Only when invited," he said. We sat on the dock, watching the sun double itself across the lake. And I realized then, community isn't about who can take. It's about who respects the line and waits to be welcomed across it.